Hey, what's up, y'all? It's Knowledge. Welcome to Brews and Reviews, and today I'm reviewing Jon Connor's SOS, and I am sipping on an Anthem Golden One. That is a Belgian-style blonde ale coming in from Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and it's 7%. So I had to represent my home state since Jon Connor always represents his hometown. So this is a good beer. Check this out if you're in the local area, and we'll get right into this album. Jon Connor, I had high hopes for this guy at one time, mostly when I was first exposed to him when he came out on Dre's compilation album, Compton. Let's call it what it is. That was a compilation album. Introduced us to several people, including Anderson .Paak was the first time we heard him, and Kendrick Lamar really held that album down, if you ask me, on the whole. But there were some great guest appearances on that album, and one of them was Jon Connor. Dre was representing and showing off his new signee, but this album SOS is only Connor's second album. He put out his first one back in 2013. It seems he was kind of stuck in label purgatory with Aftermath and Dre. And Dre has a habit of doing that. He tends to sign people just to put them on the shelf for a while. And I think that's due to his perfectionism, which works for him. When Dre drops an album himself, it's monumental, and people will be checking for it because he's Dre. But it's not so good for new artists that he's trying to get off the shelf, which unfortunately is what happened to Jon Connor. So he was stuck over there for a while. The album never came out on Aftermath, so then he finally went independent, and this is the result of that. Jon Connor, he's so positive, so grateful, so humble. I really, really want to like him, and I want this album to work, but in a lot of cases it doesn't. There's problems that are exposed from the very beginning, right from the very first track, which is called Thank You Intro, one of 4 songs titled Thank You on this album. So we get it, Connor, you're grateful, you respect your fans. That's all great to hear, but it's a little bit too much. And this track from the beginning, it's featuring Kelly Price. It's supposed to be very inspirational. It doesn't sound much like an intro for anything, more like an outro for maybe some things, but also as serving as an intro, it's not something that really gets you enamored into his style. It's not something that makes you want to listen to the rest of the album. It made me almost want to turn this off. And Connor is known for being kind of a blue collar. He calls himself the people's MC. So it doesn't prepare you for what we're going to hear in him trying to display hardcore flows all over this thing. The first official song, also called Thank You, doesn't do much to help his case. The production is off. The drums are minimal on this. There's supposed to be some inspirational type of violins on it. Connor's flow doesn't match the beat. He produced this beat, by the way, and he produced the majority of this album, which is good, and it gets better in other places. But here, I don't know how, if he is designing beats specifically for his flow, that he came up with something like this, because his flow doesn't match the beat at all. He's going too fast. He's trying to display his verbal dexterity that we know he can do, while the beat, it sounds more like a royalty-free soundtrack to a graduation slideshow. Not something that inspires the grimy kind of hip-hop that he's trying to do. The next song, Vehicle City, which was also the name of his unreleased Aftermath album, it does a lot better to introduce you to who is Jon Connor and what are we going to hear on this album. This would have served much better for the intro track if he cut those first 2 songs and just went with this. He goes fast on this song like he does on most of his songs, but the beat on this matches his flow. It's a hard beat. There's nice vocal harmonies that are chopped up in the background, and this works more. I think he'd get a lot more listeners for this album if he would have started the album with this track in particular, rather than some people turning it on and hearing Kelly Price like I did and wanting to turn it off. The next track continues. I know he raps with a lot of energy. We can hear that. We can hear how hungry he still is, how much he respects his fans, how he's giving them all the energy that he has. And he does that well on I Know. The second verse does get a little monotonous, and this whole style gets a little monotonous throughout the album. As we can see with Stay Distracted, by this time it's the third song in a row with a good flow, lots of energy in his flow, but it's the same exact tempo that we heard on the previous two songs. So it doesn't add any more to that, and it starts to get monotonous. It doesn't display any kind of versatility, and it shows his lyrical limits as well. While this song, Stay Distracted, it does have a good concept, and it's talking about people being distracted by social media and their online personas and cancel culture, etc. A better lyricist could have tackled this topic a little bit better. I like the concept that he came up with. He just wasn't executing it as well as some other people might have done. He only seems to touch the surface, and he mentions what distracts us rather than digging deep and really trying to understand or talk about the long-term implications or the root causes of this distraction. The next track, Black, is a highlight of the album. It's actually my favorite song on the album because he does a different beat here, different flow, different lyrics than what we've heard in the previous tracks. And it's actually something that's interesting. He samples the movie CB4, which was a great movie starring Chris Rock that parodied gangsta rappers. But this particular song that he's chopping up in this sample, it's a parody of something like Public Enemy. And I think it worked in the movie, and it definitely works here for what he's trying to say. And it's a great use of that sample and something that you wouldn't necessarily expect, especially for the lyrics that go along with this song. It also has a great bass line, and the beat and flow together remind me of an NWA song. Some of the lyrics on this, he says, "If everybody equal, then why my race on a resume? And I know the procedure for being black after midnight." Good storytelling in the second verse about being pulled over by a cop, saying he hopes Connor will want to die over some stupid shit. And this story, it really shows that even stars aren't immune to police brutality. And this is a great track. This is something that should be on everybody's playlist. The code, it doesn't stand out. There's more just fast flows, same tempo as we've heard in other songs again and again. He's doing the same kind of speed. Yeah, we get it, Connor, you can rap fast, but how much are you really saying? How poignant are you really being with the lyrics? And we need some different tempos that are going to make things more interesting and help things blend together better. That's what makes songs like Black stand out, because he switches it up so much. The lyrics are almost on point on this, and this is what I would say about a lot of songs. He's talking about what he wants his queen to be, but and he's trying to be respectful when he's saying it, but he still comes off as a little misogynistic in what he's saying. So I find this with a lot of songs on this album where he's just trying to be more deep than he actually is coming across. Work of Art is the first posse cut of a few on this album, and it's much welcome by this point. The guest spot really helps switch it up. Jarren Benton in particular, there's a nice transition from Connor's verse, and I like Connor's flow when somebody else is coming after it, but when it's Connor again, it does tend to get monotonous. So that's what makes this song work. Connor's flow stands out a little bit because you got Jarren Benton immediately afterwards, and his flow is stellar. He has a good guest spot on this. Locksmith also has a good verse on this song. So this song really works and is a nice change of pace from what we've heard previously. Word to My Younger Self is another song with 3 MCs, only These three don't really say anything spectacular. There is a good concept for the song, like what would you say to your younger self or what advice would you give? But again, I think better MCs could have done better with this concept, and I have heard better MCs do better with the same concept, and Connor just doesn't pull it off, along with the guest appearances, which are some of his hometown buddies that get on this track with him. Coming right after the other song with three MCs. This definitely doesn't stand out and seems like filler. This is a long album, so tracks like this I feel could have been cut to make this a tighter listen. And that goes too for the next track, the Breakup Song. This is completely undazzling, completely unnecessary. I don't know why this is even on here. The beats and lyrics are okay, but it doesn't belong on an already bloated album. There's a long outro that's just an instrumental at the end of this song, which also just seems completely unnecessary. Morning Motivation is another highlight. This song actually works, and he's trading off verses with Dizzy Wright on this one, so another welcome guest appearance. The beat fits Connor very well, and his verbal dexterity is on display here, even as late as this comes on the album. So this song actually works, and it makes for a very interesting, fun, and hype song. Dizzy's verse is probably the best guest appearance that we've heard so far on the album, and maybe a standout for the album as a whole. Although some of the MCs on the next track, the Cypher, do give him a run for his money. There's some great guest appearances here, and this thing, the Cypher, is titled properly. It's a 6-minute plus posse cut. It's kicked off by AFRO, and by my count, this is AFRO's second great guest appearance of the year, where he kicks off the song. And I love this dude's flow, and I love his voice, and I really wish that he would do more, because he's got it. And he holds down this song, probably has the best verse on the Cypher, although Connor's verse also holds it down. And Chris Webby is another highlight from the song. Those three win this Cypher, but the other MCs put out adequate verses also. And this song really works, and it's a great standalone track. One of the more lyrically astute songs on this is The Procedure, where Connor addresses things that directly impact his city, Flint, Michigan, with lyrics like, how I'm supposed to focus when they busy in my city, putting poison in the pipeline. That's an alliterative way of referring to the Flint, Michigan water crisis, and something that Connor has spoken on before, and it's welcome that he includes it here. Furthermore, in this track, he does talk about politics and violence at the hands of the police. As far as Connor can go lyrically, I think we are hearing it on this song. This is one of his most poignant that we get, and I think he really wants to be lyrical in a lot of his songs, but this is one of the few that it actually works. There's a couple songs on here where he does try to switch it up, but he tries to switch it up to something kind of poppy and things that are definitely out of his wheelhouse. One of those songs is Every Other Word. This is a very cheesy song. It has a cheesy beat, cheesy sing-song chorus. It sounds like it's a definite reach for a kind of crossover hit, and it's executed really poorly. It doesn't fit well where it's sequenced in the album. It's between two really good posse cuts, and it seems like it's just a perpetual chorus. When I was listening to this, I kept waiting for the beat to start. And I was like, this chorus, as cheesy as it is, maybe Connor will get on there and he'll spit some flames, but he never did. His verses just sound like a chorus, and it falls flat. The song You is another example of that, and it seems like another reach for trying to get a pop hit, another crossover attempt, only there's no real chorus on this. So I'm not sure exactly what he was going for. There are some singers trying to sing some inspirational type of lyrics, trying to make you feel something, a message that's maybe similar to the intro on the album, but it just kind of bothers a listener. It doesn't work at all. It almost sounds like he wrote this after a Bone Thugs and Harmony binge, which to some might sound like it's interesting, but with Connor doing it, it's not. And the same goes for Thank You, the outro. Again, another song named Thank You out of 4 on this album. And again, we get it. He's grateful. It's a nice sentiment. On this particular song, he's saying, why are you saying thank me? I should say thank you. And that's a nice thing coming from a hip-hop artist to his fans. But he said it already. We've already got 4 tracks total about this. It's completely unnecessary, especially on an already bloated album. And that leads into the last track, which clearly is the most unnecessary track on the album. This is recordings of fans all praising Connor, talking about how he changed their lives, talking about how appreciative they are of his music. And it's nice sentiment. It's cool to say, hey, I appreciate you. I'm going to put your voice on my album. And I've actually heard this done before. It's done well by Flatbush Zombies on their album 3001, but that was a much shorter album. And it was also a debut album. So it was kind of cool on that. They had a much better beat behind that track also. But this thing is 12 minutes of people leaving recordings talking about how great Connor is, and that's 12 minutes too long. Even without those 12 minutes, this thing is still over an hour. So I think people look at this and they look at the 12-minute song and they look at the total length of the album, 1 hour and 17 minutes, and it's just too intimidating and people are going to skip right over that. So I don't know why he would choose to include something like this, especially as long as it is. Connor's energy and enthusiasm are on full display on this album, and they're never in doubt. While that is something that can make individual tracks interesting, as a whole, it makes this album very monotonous. He tends to have one speed and one flow, one tempo throughout the whole thing. While there are certain attempts to try to change it up, those mostly fall flat and seem to fall outside of his wheelhouse. What makes it even worse is he tries to display this lyrical deep persona. He has these concepts that you think somebody would be going deep on, but he just scratches the surface. He's not really deep enough to fully tackle some of the issues that he's talking about, and I've heard it done much better by other MCs. Individually, a lot of these tracks can stand alone. There are some good tracks on this album, particularly Black and the Cypher. Those are tracks that people could put in a playlist with a bunch of other songs and they would say, hey, Jon Connor's great. And if this were cut down and were a little bit less bloated and there were just tracks like that and a few of the other standouts, then this album would definitely be above average. But with the monotony and the cheesiness and the bloated timestamp of this album, I am going to rate it a 5 out of a 12-pack. Because you're almost buzzing, but it's just not something that ever gets you there. Thank you for watching Brews and Reviews. Click this video that's next to me if you want to see more. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you next time.